the Director, Networks and Development at the Women's World Banking.
What we're looking for is how do you equip our women with tools of economic empowerment. So let's make the technology work for women and together reap the societal as well as the economic gains that brings. Women have more barriers. Once you design for them, it'll work for the entire customer base. So let's be gender intentional.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Policy Talks. I'm Dr. Arushi Jain, the Policy Director of the Bharati Institute of Public Policy at the Indian School of Business. And I have with me a very eminent guest today and a dear friend. Welcome, Swati, to this show.
Thank you, Arushi. It's lovely being here with you.
We have Swati Chaudhary, the Director, Networks and Development at the Women's World Banking. Swati has been involved with the financial sector for almost 2 decades now. Swati started her career with the NGOs. She moved to the financial space and now she is once again back in the financial inclusion space where she is working very closely with the women of the country. So Swati, a very interesting career and we have been seeing the kind of work you and many other financial inclusion institutions are doing today. I do understand that there is a lot of role of financial inclusion institutions, working with the state governments, working with, the policy makers. Can you please elaborate the scope of work that your organization and the similar organizations are doing in India?
Thank you, Arushi. I think that's a fairly long question. But overall, the way I would see it, I mean, what does financial inclusion mean for the women? So overall, if we see financial inclusion at the end of the day, it's a means to an end. What we're looking for is how do you equip our women with tools of economic empowerment? And there, as you rightly pointed out, there's a role for the civil society to play. There is a huge role for the government and the policymakers to play. And equally, the role is there for all financial service providers. So it's actually one of those happy coincidences where the sum of all is how do you say it's greater than its parts. So while the financial service providers play a pivotal role of actually reaching out and providing access, the government has helped lay down this very robust infrastructure, which is the JAM Trinity, and continues to really roll out a universal banking program and help galvanize a lot of action, which is now, we see the results of that today. If we see overall, if we look at India versus the rest of the world, we clearly see how women, the access issue, because we are such a large population, even 85 or 89%, we'll still have significant numbers left behind, but which we are working to reach. But overall, the gender gap in access has reduced to almost minimum. So what we are now concentrating on is the usage of financial services, and there, again, you require a concentrated sectoral approach to be able to do that.
Sure. And I remember those, couple of years ago, in fact, decades, when the BC model had started and, there was a huge lot of discussions that were going on and a lot of experiments that were done. Now we have moved a lot more digital, with COVID, coming in, we could understand the importance of, the UPI and all the systems. I think you spoke about the JAM Trinity, all the systems that have been developed digitally. It's so impressive to go and see the rural belts where, you can just scan and pay anything. And that's working throughout the country. How have you seen the difference over the 2 decades you have been working in the sector?
Firstly, as you mentioned, the JAM Trinity, it's I remember when we started to open accounts at that point of time, the regulation in the country, uh, when we looked at the microfinance sector, they were all non-deposit taking. That essentially meant that the deposits could only be at bank branches. The private sector bank branch was not as widely available in the rural areas, and the actual access on the deposit taking was only done by public sector. I mean, obviously they continue to play a large, crucial role there, but with the Aadhaar coming in, this swiftness of opening an account and it being counted as full KYC, that itself is huge. There is nothing called reduced KYC anymore. So that itself was a huge leap in terms of the ease of opening an account, and I've seen what the earlier struggle was. So starting from there to the way the access has grown, and it's always heartening to see the way Findex charts are drawn, because it's with India and without India, because we skew everything. And the other digital technologies, I mean, all of them are playing a part. Having said that, yes, on the usage piece, there is a lot to be done. If I talk about the women specifically, women are, as adopters, they have a lot of questions, but they have a very steep adoption curve. So if they're satisfied, they would be very loyal customers to you. So I think we need to make that effort, and we've seen a lot of facilitators and trusted channels like the BC Sakhis, some of the BCs that have helped people on board. We require more effort, more I would say collaborative effort in that area, and relevant communication. So I would say a compelling proposition, a trusted channel, and relevant communication. When they work together, we will see a great amount of adoption.
That reminds me of the availability of data. When we were putting up the financial inclusion data on the India Data Portal, a project that we have, we are now working with the financial inclusion partners in the ecosystem to actually develop, the portal with the kind of data that they require. We find that finding a proper gender disaggregated data has been a challenge with the network there. Do you think that's right? And
so I'm really happy that you brought it up, especially because as you are building the data portal, this is it'll be great that you're thinking about all these things, because that then leads to the kind of data which will be available on the portal. So if I look at gender disaggregated data, the first piece is that it is being collected. Today, gender as a variable is being collected every time we access services. But it's not available in the public domain. And if I just step back a little bit, it's about, do we recognize women as a customer segment? So when we look at the data, we look at MSME. So for example, a bank will not club all kind of businesses together, right? They would look at smaller businesses, they would look at mid-corporates, they would look at corporates, and based on their needs, would tailor programs. And that's why you have a greater adoption there. Similarly, we need to first recognize women as a customer segment. And we have very few financial institutions that do so. But once they do, they're able to reap the huge benefit that comes from that. So in terms of gender disaggregate data, the 2 points are: one, it needs to be made, organizations need to start putting it out in the public domain. One, from looking at the data to look at the needs of the customer segment, as well as seeing that the huge opportunity that brings in. So, for example, there was one financial service provider that we were working with us, when they saw that their women loan customers actually had a customer lifetime value of 30% more. It's something that they had, though they worked with data day in and day out, but had not really looked at it from that angle. And when I spoke to them, if that opportunity was obvious to all financial service provider, their answer was a very candid no, saying, let's speak about it together. Let's speak about this to more partners, so that this opportunity becomes more well-known and it becomes like a more established practice to look at data.
Right, right. From data, I'm taking you to the policy side of it, because right now also, if if you look at our country, there are a lot of people overall and women specifically who need to be digitally literate in order to actually get into the financial inclusion net. What do you think the policy makers today need to focus on to bridge this gap?
Actually, this is a huge,
Very challenging thing. But yeah, maybe from your point of view,
so
what do
I
you
would say
think?
there are two, three aspects to it. One is in terms of overall skilling. So government has this one Gram Panchayat, one BC Sakhi program, and BC Sakhis, if we equip them in a manner that they can digitally include more women, this is a very trusted channel. And you imagine with the might of all the entire National Rural Livelihood Mission and all the state rural livelihood missions, this can become a reality. And all of them can become digital enablers. So first is in terms of skilling of it. The second piece is a little bit more difficult. It's about when we always talk about digital and financial capability building from the women, saying that just if the women changed, they would be able to get all the benefits. Well, I would like to just flip it a little bit and say, women today represent a huge opportunity. They have proven that. Our study basically showed that if you engaged Jan Dhan women, it would lead to 25,000 crores of deposits, which is a significant opportunity. So let's make the technology work for women, and let's reap the both the societal as well as the economic gains that brings.
Right. And if I talk about, so from the policy side, but from the other side, if I look at the other stakeholders, the banking institutions, the non-banking financial institutions, there are many other institutions that work very closely with the social sector, including the non-for-profits or even the donor organizations, to talk about. How do you think they can create a collaborative ecosystem? And have you seen recently some kind of these collaborations coming up?
So I feel that when we look at the entire sectoral change, I would say it's they say it's called the gradual release of responsibilities. It's called I do. So I'm going to do it and show it. So it's a proof of concept. Then it's we do. Let's do it together and let's build capacity. And then it's you do. Because at the end of the day, if we really have to make the needle move, we need to have more organizations who are involved. So exactly as how you put it, I would say if you looked at Jan Dhan, for example, that the entire rails that it was built on, if you look at the regional rural banks or the public sector banks, the entire banking system, how they went on and opened all these accounts. And mind you, all these accounts are on their regular systems. They have not parked these accounts or discriminated against them. So this entire movement together, and now the realization about what can we do more so that we are able to engage this customer base more. So we have donor organizations coming in who are putting in the philanthropic capital so that we are able to build evidence in this area, to create capacity in that area. You have very willing financial service providers who are coming forward and partnering on that, and the civil society organizations who are on the ground building capacity. So I would say that this entire piece of how we've seen it build is an example on itself. And it's a lot more of that is required because now we have to now concentrate on the usage. So the only thing that I would like to leave with all the stakeholders is nothing called gender neutrality. So if women have more barriers, once you design for them, it'll work for the entire customer base. So let's be gender intentional.
Oh, okay. So here comes the Women's World Banking say. So, yeah, thank you so much, Swati. Such wonderful insights on a very imperative, policy aspect. Financial inclusion is something that everyone is talking about today. There is a lot that's being done, as we have just discussed. And I think this conversation of ours is going to help a couple of people understand, a little more from your expertise. And thank you so much for being here at the ISB studios.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.